Hi, welcome back. Healthy Coaching, Nutrition Made Simple, Dr. Sherry. And I want to talk to you a bit about my favorite topic, which is food sensitivities. I call them the sensitive 7 because we've isolated, we think, 7 that are the most common food sensitivities. Now remember, a food sensitivity is a delayed food reaction. So it's 24 to 48 hours after you ingest a food, you could get a chronic health symptom. And the range of health symptoms that are potentially causative from a food sensitivity, there's a huge variety. It's a wide range, and it's another reason why in conventional medicine I think it's sometimes hard to diagnose food sensitivities, because they can manifest very differently with different people. So if you start to look at a list, a symptom list associated with food sensitivities, it's across the board. And that makes sense to me because everybody's very individual, and so how somebody reacts to a certain food is going to be very different from the next person, and it's based on, what's your digestive system like, how is your body going to respond, what is the reaction that's particular for you, what is your compromised area. Everybody's kind of has their place where they may naturally hold stress or be more prone to certain issues, like somebody might be prone to depression, somebody else might be prone to digestive issues. We're all very unique, and so I think the way we process foods is unique as well, and that's why you see so many different symptoms. Some of the common ones are sinusitis, chronic issues here in the sinuses, definitely chronic digestive issues, and that ranges from gas, bloat, constipation, diarrhea, stomach pain, anything GERD, esophageal reflux, any of this burning or pressure here is almost, I would say, about 99% always a food sensitivity or has some relation to a food sensitivity. It's sort of a hallmark sign, in my opinion. Joint pain, muscle pain, fatigue, insomnia, depression, anxiety, headaches are huge. Headaches are a big one. So as you can see, there's a wide range of potential symptoms associated with a food sensitivity. And the real key to identifying food sensitivities is removing them from the diet. And we really need to remove them from the diet for about 3 weeks. And you need to remove them for the 3 weeks completely. And that's real key here, is that you can't just get little low levels of these foods in that 3-week period of time, because your body won't be able to repair the way it needs to, and you won't receive all the benefits from the complete elimination. So in order to see if you have a food sensitivity, 3 weeks is really key to making sure all of these common food sensitivities are eliminated to the best of your ability in order to really experience the benefits associated with that elimination. And then at the end of the 3 weeks, you can choose to reintroduce foods in a specific way so you can see how that food affects you. So let's go through the sensitive 7. Now again, we have 7 that are the most common food sensitivities. However, there are other foods that can be problematic for people, but I find that the sensitive 7 gets at most food sensitivities. Beyond this, you can certainly measure. You can do a blood test called an IgG food sensitivity. This is different if you go to your conventional medical doctor and you ask for a food panel of some sort, an allergy panel, or you think you might have some issues with foods. They're going to run an IgE panel, and that's the immediate food reaction. That's not what we're looking at these days. That we're looking into today. We're looking at IgG, that delayed reaction. It is not standardly tested for in the conventional medical model. We can certainly test for it, and it's called an IgG food panel. It gives you good information. It's not 100% accurate, so you have to. I really think you need to couple it with a diet. There's no way of getting out of the diet if you suspect a food sensitivity. At some point, you're going to have to embark on this component. But sometimes it's nice to couple it with an IgG food panel, depending on somebody's symptoms. But let's go into and delve into the 7. Let me tell you a little bit about them. So the first one is wheat, and wheat also is gluten. So let me make sure that we put that here too. So wheat and gluten, they go together, okay? Got to eliminate those. It's confusing to people. Do you remember, it wasn't that long ago where everybody was telling you to go look for wheat. The best way to choose a bread is to get 100% whole wheat bread. So everybody was looking for wheat as a health food, and now everything's gluten-free, wheat-free, gluten-free, and it's very confusing. People don't really know what to do. And what we've discovered is that gluten is a big issue for many people, and it's not because inherently there's anything wrong with wheat. I still have people today that are very gluten intolerant, but they can go over to, say, Italy and eat bread and pasta and do fine. So I don't believe that necessarily wheat's a problem for everybody, but it's a problem for most people and for most people that live in the United States. There's a couple reasons for that. One of those reasons is because we have decided that through processing of our foods in this country, we're going to add wheat to everything. Because wheat and gluten is what makes things sticky. It makes bread stickies and certain grains and muffins, and it gives it a really nice, yummy consistency. So gluten is a main component of wheat. Gluten's also found in a lot of other places as well. Because it gives it's that thick quality, that spongy quality, we started to put it in all kinds of other things. So certainly it's in baked goods and breads and pastas. You can find it in ice creams and luncheon meats. It's used as a filler. It's in canned goods. And that's part of the reason is the body is, for some people, and some people are a little more, come into the world or a little bit closer to their toxic burden line. And that toxic burden line is where we start to develop symptoms. So people that are closer to that, they may experience issues from wheat more readily than somebody else. But when you're getting all this constant bombardment from all these foods, you're getting wheat from the bread, wheat from the canned food, wheat from the luncheon meats. It's constant. It starts to build up, and people will start to react. And again, that reaction can be a host of different symptoms. It does not have to be digestive related. Some people can have seemingly perfect digestion and have joint pain associated with wheat or gluten, or carrying around extra 10 pounds they can never seem to lose, and it's because of wheat or gluten. Again, it's in everything, and so part of the whole experience of not being able to tolerate it anymore is just the body goes, I can't do it anymore. It's too much day in and day out because we put it in everything. Another piece of the puzzle is that for the majority in this country, we have taken the grain, the wheat grain, and we have we only use one variety of wheat. So it's called monocropping. So we tend to use this one variety, and also we have changed the wheat. The percentage of gluten, that's the sticky component of wheat, is a lot higher than it's ever been. We've changed the structure, the agricultural structure, so that we produce this really stable, hardy crop, and it's very high in gluten. So again, the body's just not used to it, and for certain types, people can react strongly. Now, some people develop something called celiac disease, which is definitely a big health issue, has lots of consequences. But there's a whole spectrum of gluten insensitivity or gluten intolerance that leads up to and before celiac. And so oftentimes people will also go to their conventional medical doctor and say, I think I might have a problem with gluten. Can you test me for it? And they might run an antibody test and say, you're fine, you don't have a problem with gluten. And they mean that from an antibody perspective in association with celiac. So you probably don't have celiac, but doesn't rule out a gluten sensitivity. The only way to really, in my opinion, to rule out a gluten sensitivity is to take it out of the diet strictly for 3 weeks. And then you can see at that point how much better you've gotten. But wheat is a very big fundamental food sensitivity, and oftentimes people might be very reactive to all kinds of the different sensitive 7, but there may be 1 or 2, and wheat is often a culprit that's the underlying, that's the main food sensitivity. And once you take that out of the diet and allow the body to heal up, then the body doesn't react to some of these other foods. So gluten's one. Another component that often goes along with gluten is dairy. Lots of people are sensitive to dairy, and dairy has one kind of hallmark symptom, and that is chronic sinus issues, postnasal drip. that's often related to dairy. Dairy is a very mucus-forming food, and so people that tend to overproduce mucus often tend to be sensitive to dairy. So it's an interesting thing to see. There are so many forms of dairy. So dairy is your butter, it's your ice cream, it's your all kinds of cheeses, yogurt, milk, lots of dairy. And again, dairy's found in everything. It's really hard. One of the beautiful things about going through the sensitive 7 and eliminating the sensitive 7 is becoming aware of labels. You'll start to see, really get a hands-on experience. So even if your healthiest crackers in the whole world that are in your cupboard, if you look, it probably has one of the sensitive 7. You find dairy in places that dairy probably shouldn't be. Dairy should probably just be in the form of cheese or just in the form of yogurt. Something interesting about wheat and gluten and dairy is that they have a certain protein on them that mimics some of the opiates. So it's a class of opiates on the brain. So what you see with people sometimes is they can have a pretty strong reaction when you take away these foods. It's almost like it's a bit of a drug withdrawal for them because these are occupying some of the feel-good receptors in the brain. It's also why these foods are highly addictive. And the processing food industry in our country knows very well how addictive these foods are, and it's another reason they'll put them in everything. So it tickles people's taste buds. It starts to change brain receptors, and it makes us want more and more and more, so we're more apt to buy those products. So dairy is a very big one, and you can see with people sometimes gluten and dairy tend to be the biggest ones. Gluten, dairy, and sugar probably, where you can see it in people's eyes when you start to bring up the sensitive 7 and you walk through these with people. They kind of their eyes widen a little bit and they go, and it's usually the food that they love the most that they realize is probably the food they're having a problem with. And I don't know why the body's like that. It's definitely true. We have a joke in naturopathic medical school. Our joke was that when you sit down with a new patient, you give them a blank piece of paper and you say, okay, I want you to write down all of your favorite foods. You get the piece of paper back and then you turn it around and you say, these are the foods you cannot have for the next 3 weeks. But the reason behind that is it really is the foods that we're most attracted to, the foods we like the most, are the ones that tend to cause the most problems for us, and they're the hardest for us to get rid of in the diet initially. But what you see, people go into a program where they might eliminate the sensitive 7 and they're anxious and nervous and how are they going to do it? These are their favorite foods. And what you see is after that initial adjustment period, a few days, maybe a week, they don't want the foods anymore. By the end of the 3 weeks, people have really very little attachment to the foods. I say about 80% of the people that go through our cleanse program where we eliminate the sensitive 7, they really don't want to reintroduce at the end. They have no desire at all. They feel so good, they don't really care to find out what food was causing an issue. So that's a really good place to be. So the body does have its inherent ability to, I think, to self-regulate and to heal itself. And so once you go over through that initial adjustment phase, the body will tell you exactly what it needs, and oftentimes it doesn't need any of these foods that you are so attached to in the beginning. Okay, soy is another one. Soy is very controversial in this country. For a long time, we thought it was a fantastic health food and that it prevented breast cancer, and we saw some of the research coming from Japan, and these women have very low breast cancer risk, and so we believe a part of it was from the soy. Certainly people that are vegetarian and vegan tend to have higher soy diets and soy in their diets. But what we know is that soy is very allergenic for many people, and one of my best examples is I see a lot of women and a lot of menopausal aged women, and they'll come in and they know that soy is helpful for hot flashes, which it is. However, in the right dosage and in the right forms, and so they'll come in, they'll start, soy protein and soy bars and soy isoflavones. They're doing all this soy in their diet, and so maybe their hot flashes go away, but then they come in and their stomachs are really upset, and they're starting to have thyroid issues, and they feel terrible. And it's because they're reacting to the soy in the diet. So I do believe that soy can be a health food for some people in the right forms, but as a majority, again, what we've done, we can manipulate soy very easily. as well as corn, which is the next one, as well as egg, which is the next one. We can manipulate them in the laboratory and add them to processed foods as stabilizers and thickeners and preservatives. So again, the body gets bombarded by this constant exposure, and then it's in so many different forms. The Japanese culture know soy very well, and they know how to use soy, and they ferment their soybeans. When they eat their soy, which helps to pre-digest the soy, and when they eat their soy, they couple it with high iodine vegetables like sea vegetables, and we rarely eat sea vegetables in this culture. So they get a good balance with how they're eating their soy, and we don't do that so much in this country, so it becomes problematic for us. Soy is a big one. Corn is another one, and people are often surprised by corn. I'm not really talking about corn on the cob, although you will start to react to corn on the cob if you have a corn allergy or corn sensitivity. But if everybody only had corn on the cob their whole life and that was their only exposure, nobody would react to corn. But again, it's about how we process that corn. And again, it's found everywhere in so many different hidden places. So corn's a big one. Egg is a huge one. And I see egg come up on food sensitivity panels quite often. And you'll see, it's interesting, you'll see some people react to the egg and some people react to the yolk more strongly. So during the reintroduction phase, we'll actually separate those out and have people reintroduce those separately and see if you can tolerate one better than the other. But again, it's about processing. In the grand scheme, I want everyone to not be sensitive to eggs. I think egg, a farm fresh, locally raised, pastured egg is perfect health food. But not if you're sensitive to it. And so hopefully we get somebody back around to where they can eat those whole pastured eggs. But oftentimes not in the beginning. People can be very sensitive to eggs. Peanuts are the other one. Peanuts are the most highly sprayed crop there is. They grow molds rather readily. So people, I think, often react to the mold component of the peanut and have some pretty strong reactions. I had one person with a very chronic digestive health issue and we did everything. We pulled out all the stops and still had some issues. Once she went through the sensitive 7, she wasn't a big peanut eater, so she thought, but there were peanuts on her desk at work, so she would casually grab peanuts kind of during the day here and there, but she never bought peanuts. She didn't have peanuts at home. When we did the reintroduction phase, we realized that was a key component of her digestive problems was those peanuts that she was eating. So it's very interesting to see some individually how people react to peanuts. And then sugar. Sugar's the big one here. I have so many people coming in for sugar addiction. Again, the processing food industry and fast food industry knows very well our affinity for sugar. We're born into the world to have a sweet bud, a taste bud for sweet. We need that sweet from mother's milk, so it's a survival mechanism for us to be highly attuned to that sweet component in foods. But I think Mother Nature meant for things like some of our berries to be the sweetest thing that we have, and even our vegetables. When you get back to balance with your taste and you only eat whole unprocessed foods, you really start to taste the sweetness in your broccoli, the sweetness in your asparagus. It's wild. Sometimes people can't get through a whole apple at the end of the program because it's so sweet. It's too sweet for them. Your taste buds start to even out again, and your body really tells you what it needs. But the processing food industry knows very well that we are attuned to that sweet flavor, and it plays with us a little bit because there's a whole chemical reaction behind the taste of sweet. There's a lot of biochemistry in the brain that happens with the taste of sweet, and so it's really the chemical industry has really played into your brain chemistry, really is starting to manipulate your brain chemistry through some of the processing of the foods, and sugar's a big one. And sugar's really found everywhere, and everybody loves sugar, and it's really hard to get off of sugar. I do find, though, if you tackle these sensitive 7 all at once, and not everybody does it all at once, and people will choose to do 1 or 2 foods here and there. I find it most effective if you do it all at once. But if you get rid of all of these food sensitivities for the 3 weeks, and you clean up your diet and you do it in a really balanced way, you will absolutely be able to bypass any sugar by the end of the 3 weeks. You just again, your body tells you, and it tells you it doesn't need that sugar. It doesn't even look appetizing to you anymore. So it is a really beautiful place to be when your apple is plenty sweet. It's all you want. And then I have a subcategory down here. I don't eliminate, this is the nightshade family. I do not eliminate the nightshades across the board for everyone, but for certain people I will. And the nightshade family is a different mechanism of action from all the other food sensitivities in my mind. It has to do with some of these class of vegetables that are toxic to humans in certain amounts. And some people process it very well and don't have a problem. Some people do not process this class of family very well. It's called the nightshade family. It includes your potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and tobacco. Okay? So that class, and I can tell people when I go through the list, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers, tobacco, when I go through that list, you can tell if somebody has an affinity for any of those foods. And again, you can pretty much bet if they have a strong affinity to one of those foods, it's probably, there might be something there and they're sensitive to those foods. So we do this kind of on a one-by-one basis with people. Definitely if you have joint pain, I take nightshades out across the board because the body will put some of those, the toxic byproducts into the joints, and you'll feel that in the joint pain. And it's a beautiful thing to know if tomatoes are causing your joint pain. It's not that for everyone, but if it is, that, knowledge is power combination. But I will say the longer that I run my programs, eliminating the sensitive 7, the more I see nightshades being problematic for people. And I've definitely had some key cases, digestive wise, where nightshades were a big problem for people. So, definitely look into them and think about those. So the beauty of food sensitivities, obviously it's a bummer if you have a food sensitivity. Great to know if you have a food sensitivity, but the beautiful component is that these can be healed. So some people go into a program like that thinking what if I'm sensitive to dairy? Dairy is my favorite food. How could I not go out and have a cheese with my friends and at a cocktail party? That would be terrible. Well, it doesn't mean that. It means that you have to give your body a break. One, you have to find out if one of these foods is an issue for you. 2, take a break for a little while, and then work on digestive health, because I'm a firm believer in everybody should be able to eat food. Whole, unprocessed food. You should be able to eat it and digest it, and you should be able to have, pizza every now and then. You should be able to have crackers, some processed food here and there, and you should be able to handle it and digest it and it not be a big deal. And that's where we want to get everybody. Identify your sensitive 7, put your perfect diet together, figure out your key diet, and then you can start to reintroduce some of the foods, work on digestive health, and make sure that you're digesting the food that you should be digesting. We should all be able to eat food and digest it well. That's where we want to get you. So thanks for joining me. I'd like to go into a little bit more of my other favorite toxic 10 my other favorite component of the toxic 10, which is adrenal and stress health. I want to teach you how to stress less by going through a few key components of adrenal health. So stick with me and let's go into that component of the toxic 10 and have a healthy day.